This is like the thing with bluff catchers. At this point, this is not a bluff catcher. It just has to call. And now on the river 4 flush, could almost turn ace-jack into a bluff, but I think it's fine to check. Hey everyone, this is Uri for Guerrilla Poker, and today I'm gonna bring you guys a short live play, which we've done a few of. I'm gonna play NL200 fast fold game on GG Network, and going to go with the general philosophy I've been talking about in these games, which is that you don't need to care too much about balance. People are going to be very face up with a lot of things they're doing, and I'm going to try to take advantage of that in a very shameless way. While watching, perhaps you guys will see a bit of the things that I'm picking up on and taking advantage of, and you can ask yourself, do you think the people you're playing against have the ability to pick up on that? Can they exploit you in this way, or can you just kind of, do whatever you want? So we'll do 3 tables. I always want to put out the disclaimer that this is not my main game. I'm definitely rusty with NL200 pre-flop ranges, so we're going to be making a few mistakes in the pre-flop area, but everything I do is going to be somewhat reasonable. Alright, just around the edges. Ace-5 suited, I think, always 3 bets here. And Ace-8 offsuit versus a third pot bet on Queen-3. 3 is probably fairly close. We'll actually call. 8-3-9. Is a fairly good board for small blind 3-bet range, so I'll start out by c-betting roughly 1/3. And Ace-8, when I go check call, check check, it's a bit tough for me to have bluffs. On the river I'd have to bluff like King Jack Jack 10, so just check, and I'll check Ace-5 as well. 6 is not a very good card for me, and I have all the like Queen Jack Jack 10, Queen 10 type of hands. So we'll just check fold. Ace-8 definitely calling. Not a great spot, but it's okay. The reason I say not a great spot has to do with villain's sizing. His sizing indicates usually like what's his value betting threshold, and this is mostly folding. The way he was sizing, it felt like he had quite a strong hand. I'm actually surprised to see as weak as Ace-8. Almost expected a higher kicker. Okay, King-9 would face small 3-bet, but called 4-bet. Well, obviously we'd fold anyway. And here, in theory, Deuce-5 should play mixed versus a check, but in practice, I think checking range is probably too weak and not check raising enough, so just stamping a lot and kind of taking it from there. So I was saying probably don't get check raised enough. Now, this is a hand that should probably mostly continue against a check raise, but if you think we're not getting check raised enough, probably fine to fold, so I'll make a tight fold. Pocket 4s here, somewhat close. I think this is probably like GTO a fold, but close, and I'm gonna call, kind of expecting people to not put enough aggression, which favors a hand like 4s. And now we're gonna do something cool. This is a board where villain has tons and tons of just over cards, so check raising small with 4s gets us nice protection. The idea is actually to keep going for protection on a lot of turns, right? Just charging hands like Ace King, Ace Queen, etc. And now giving up and probably check folding, not expecting people to actually bluff enough. Let's see. Villain shows up with 8, so 8 is well played by him. So here this goes check back by villain. On the turn, I want to be over bluffing generally, but this hand is a bit too spewy for that. 7's here 3-way, I think I'll just straight up fold. And 9s can check back here. Ooh, alright, so river a pair. We check back again. I guess we'll check this. Once villain checks a 3rd time, could almost value bet 9s, but I don't think there's a point. I don't think I get called enough by worse. Let's play is okay. And here we need to figure out, do I want to call Jack 9? Checks back twice, and then that makes this weak looking bet on the river. Kind of like he wants me to call, so I'm a bit confused. I'll probably end up folding, because when it's close I'm going to lean towards folding. It's really important to understand the big picture context of a bluff catching situation, so we'll actually talk about this. So when we reach the river and villain bets the size that he bet, what happens is that Jack 9 is a pure bluff catcher, so I only beat bluffs. That means that I don't have to call Jack 9. Theoretically, I should sometimes call, sometimes fold, and the frequency depends a bit on my range and a bit on his sizing. If we're playing the spot theoretically, we would RNG, use a random number generator, kind of like rolling a dice. This is what a lot of high stakes regs do, what Doug Polk was doing and Daniel Negreanu during their Heads Up challenge. They would reach these spots, they would say, okay, I think a hand like Jack 9 versus like a 40% bet needs to call, say, 60% of the time or 70% of the time, which I think are reasonable numbers for that situation. So you'd guess a number and then you'd be like, okay, use my random number generator and decide according to that whether this time is a call or a fold. And what you guys see me doing is, rather than use a random number generator, I look at the situation and I try to do better than the random number generator. I try to guess. I think villain is gonna bluff too much or too little. And here, the thought process is, this is a board where a lot of people would bet flop or turn with their bluffs. So there's a decent chance villain just has 0 bluffs getting to the river. If that's the case, calling would be pretty terrible. So we'll just fold all pure bluff catchers. And then 8's decent spot to squeeze. And alright, that's a good flop. Start out with a small bet. Sets should always pretty much bet small. And I think ace-jack probably calls a half-pot bet, but close. 8's, just keep betting probably. Ace-jack still forced to call at this point. This is like the thing with bluff catchers. At this point, this is not a bluff catcher. It just has to call. Now on the river 4 flush, could almost turn ace-jack into a bluff, but I think it's fine to check and sometimes showdown against a worse ace, but very often you face a low flush, or even something like this which might have folded had we decided to bluff. I think ace-jack is strong enough to not really do that. Here we have 3-way ace-jack. I think kind of nice spot to bet really, really tiny. The flatting ranges against squeezes contain lots of pocket pairs. And this tiny bet puts those in tough spots. It still lets people bluff. It's kind of a nice way to play something like pocket kings, for example. Kind of nice play, I think. And of course we'll just call this. This guy doesn't have enough money behind to really warrant me doing anything else. And I just called, so maybe he thinks I have kings and bluffs in case he is bluffing. And again, just gonna check down. Maybe he has a flush, maybe he has complete trash, and spade makes him bluff. Either way, I'm not folding and I don't see too much point in betting myself. Personally, I would rather he snap bet the river. I think thinking and then shoving is stronger, but I'm still gonna call. Slightly expecting a flush, but let's not read too much into the timing. Hopefully the thought process makes sense. Ace-jack, this is really important in terms of strategy. Once villain raises flop, ace-jack is in that kind of middling area where betting just doesn't make sense. I will not get called by worse. Only get called by better or get folds from hands like villain hand, which might bluff the way the board ran out. Unless, maybe villain raised ace-5 and checks it down. I think that a lot more likely is him just raising a bluff due to our small bet. Then he gives up and then he's like, spade on the river, I could have a flush, and that makes him try to bluff again. Okay, so we have a boom pot. We'll limp the 7-6 from cutoff. I'll also limp my strong hands here. Just too much dead money, so I'm mostly interested with my range in actually seeing the flop. And people can make these kind of wide shoves. Of course, we fold this one. Here goes check check, turn 4. And also really important hand reading spot, because generally when one of the cards pairs, it's not good for you to stab, but given positions, villain doesn't really have a 4. So we can still stab. Like this is actually a better card for my range than for his range. So I'm just betting for protection against hands like overcards. And now all the overcards hit an ace. So of course I now either decide to turn the hand into a bluff or check. We're gonna check. And here, let's bluff this for half pot. And wow, okay, so here I think villain is kind of misreading the situation and how good the ace is for him. This is maybe a good example of why I like folding so much. Pretty sure villain gets to bluff with king queen here. Of course he wins a decent amount of the time, but I'm often gonna have like a 5 or a 9 or pocket 6s, pocket 3s, all those hands. And we'll have a pretty tough time calling on the river. So I would have liked to see a bluff there. Okay, cool spot. Here small blind is donk betting into the two of us. This is very often something like 7s in my experience. So what do you do against 7s with 9s? Probably make a small raise. Keep him calling. Then check back turn, because I think 7s might fold if I barrel a turn. Probably bet river. Here ace 5 with a club has to call. Yeah, think just bet river. This is pretty thin though, maybe this is not good. Had the right hand strength for him, but he improved on the river. So here ace 5, facing turnover, bet this hand should pure fold. And again, like I said, in bluff catching situations, it's important to understand, you know, he could have 2 pair, so the fact that this is a 5 and not a 9 is relevant. For example, with a 9, I have outs against ace 8, here I don't, so no real reason to call this hand. Ace queen, can bet big even. On this rainbow board, we'll just check fold. I think we had enough interesting hands, so I'll probably wrap up fairly soon. Here, nice board to bet big on, betting big with something like Queen Jack. Has a good job of like making villain fold hands like King Jack and King Queen, which is really nice for Queen Jack. And it's a difficult bet to continue enough against. Call. Yeah, I guess probably keep going. And now the question is, what does villain do with something like King 9? This obviously looks very nutted by me. Probably throw in a small bet. I'm actually not keeping track too much of what's happening with Jack 6. I'm more focused on a Queen Jack. We face a min raise from villain. Let me see, so I'm doing like implied odds calculations. 4 10s. Get roughly 10% to win. So we do get kind of implied odds to just call, but this is very weird because the board is so connected and we overbet. But it is still probably just the nuts. So I think we have to fold, but it's close. It's close. We almost have enough. It's almost small enough where we can peel to hit a 10, but I think not quite. Here, raise 3-bet and call. Probably enough money to rip ace king. Here we'll start out betting half pot. Cold callers very often jacks, 10s, 9s, various hands like that in there. Here 10-3-5-5. After betting half pot, there is this trick where ace king sometimes bets to get called by ace queen, but I also think people play a bit too passively with their ace queen, ace jack, which kind of lets me show this down a bit. Ooh, very nice river. Hopefully a deuce is marginal, okay to call. I think just bet. And here this should sometimes check raise. Let's actually just check raise. Here obviously I could have various bluffs, so such as ace queen, ace jack. So it's not terrible for him to call, but we would, like I said, I don't expect too many calls. We will bet this, and yeah, I think we can wrap up after these hands. Here we're gonna range check. Ace queen, probably mix 4-bet and call. It's actually 4-bet this time. This will be a 4-bet fold, and king 5 will call, of course. So here check to me, always check back. I think anything else is a mistake. King 5, when villain checks back turn, I'm gonna value bet the river. Ace queen always folds. This is just a bluff, you know, sometimes you get called by like a king queen suited or 7s or something, but stacking off the hand's not good enough. Okay, so that does it for this session. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. If you did, please like and subscribe to the channel. If you haven't, check out the Guerrilla Poker website. We have a course discussing the principles that you guys see me using to play. We have GTO pre-flop charts, extremely important to have an idea of what GTO looks like. All the plays like I make the 4-bets with ace queen, the 3-bets with ace 5 suited. These are like very standard. Once you study a few, you kind of know more or less the ballpark of how you want to play your range pre-flop, which is extremely important and takes away a lot of the mental effort so you can focus on all the other stuff that's going on in the game. Hope you guys enjoyed it. We'll see you next time.